Hey, everybody. It's Yonda, the founder and CEO. We're on Genius Room and Silver ADU Collective. And today I'm excited to be here with you all. And we're going to be covering a couple things. So let's get your pen, get your paper, and let's get started. All right. So, Silver ADU. I know I've been talking about Silver ADU, but I'm not quite sure I've done it justice to really explain to you what that is. So I want you to know that the Silver ADU Collective is a premium advisory firm focused on accessory dwelling units, development, multi generational, and sandwich generation housing solutions, regulatory compliance, and RWA, which is real world assets tokenization frameworks. We support property owners, developers, institutional partners with structuring, compliance, and capital strategies for ADU and related real estate assets. Our objective is to scale advisory capacity and to develop structured vehicles that enable fractional and tokenized ownership of assets. So that's a little bit about the ADU and who we are and why I'm coming on here. And I'm talking to you all about this. As you all know, I've been on X for a very long time. That's what it feels like anyway. 4.5 years, right? And in that 4.5 years, I've always brought an element of real estate and talking to you about the many different ways, opportunities that exist in real estate, specifically what you can, what you can't do. And here are some different niches within real estate. There are over 100 different ways that you can get involved in real estate. And that's what I enjoy doing is really talking to you all about what that looks like and how you can get involved, right? So the ADU is very near and dear to my heart. Now, I'll tell you, my mom has been a nurse's aide for about 35 years, and she worked in a nursing home, and she only had one job, and she retired from that job. And she made sure that she took care of families, she took care of grandparents, and so forth. And I would hear the stories of how it made her feel being a part of that industry, and it became so important because I remember becoming the primary caregiver for my mom and my dad, and my dad has passed on now, but my father actually found himself fighting different stages of dementia. And at that time, I had very small children. I was working a corporate career, so I had to balance my time with making sure that my parents made it to their doctor's visit, their medications were picked up, the housing was comfortable. And I remember having to reach out and have a private nurse coming in to support my father and my mom while I worked and I took care of my kids who were small, right? And they really couldn't take care of themselves. So it was a lot. It was a lot to focus on. It was a lot to wrap my mind around. And sometimes I just felt like, wow, at some point I need some relief, whether it's respite, whether it's support. So I remember my mom and I reaching out to a friend and a friend who had her nursing certificate. So she was able to come in and offer my mom, primarily my mom, and then myself some respite so that we can just have some type of normalcy in our lives, right? Because you're constantly splitting your priorities and your time between what your young family that's growing needs and what your aging family needs. So that was a lot to balance. So this is personal for me by creating this business of Silver ADU Collective. And then when you think about so many problems and so many opportunities in this, what's called the Silver Tsunami. The silver tsunami recognizes that we have an aging population that is happening right in our midst. And so by the year 2030, we're going to have more seniors age 65 by the year 2030 than we have 18-year-olds and under. So, wow, that's significant. So, something for us to consider as this is becoming a serious concern that we need to solve for in the solution. So, that's what a silver ADU, the accessory dwelling unit, does. I remember 2 years ago spending some time watching the governor spin up a task force on ADUs. And I'm like, what's an ADU? Right. And I've been in real estate most of my life, licensed in real estate for about just under 10 years. And so I started like following and and listening and to the meetings. I was invited to the meetings. I made my presence known. Hey, I'm interested in learning more. And so, because I was doing that, it allowed for me to have first hand knowledge of the complexities built around bringing accessory dwelling units to a community. And they're starting to spread around the United States and kind of get bigger. And the biggest thing that you have to know is that every state maybe has one or two ADUs. Every county may have an ADU. Every city may have an ADU. So that's where I talk a little bit about that blue ocean strategy and why this is so important to get in front of it, to be able to talk with families and to support families in their time of need. Because nothing like splitting your time with these priorities. And as the kids get older, they have sports and things like that. Well, I wanted to share with you today, and this is more of an ADU news. Here's some features, here's some testimonials. And this article comes by way of the Business Insider. And so the Business Insider just published an interview today that talks about um, a woman built a 400,000 ADU on her property so her parents can live rent free. And that's an article from today that popped up. And I was like, okay, so let's talk more about that. So, Hannah Brown, she wanted to give back to her parents with an ADU. Now, ADUs, those accessory dwelling units, it can be an in home conversion, right? It could be an external um, dwelling to your property. So it can be in your backyard, it can be on your side yard. Normally, it may have an external um, entrance and exit to it. Some people use basements and convert those, or attics, or garages, even to do some construction and repurpose that accessory dwelling unit. So, those are just some ideas when you start to think about what's next. And so, I get it. Some people don't even have to really think about this right now, but I'm going to challenge you that at some point you're going to be confronted with some of these thoughts about the aging population, whether it's an aunt, whether it's an uncle, whether it's siblings, it becomes a reality. So, Hannah, as you can see in this article, um, she wanted to see if her parents, um, Hannah Brown wants to see if her parents are home. She doesn't have to call them or ring the doorbell. She just looked out of her window and she was able to see. See, her parents live in an ADU in her backyard. And this is after her husband bought their house in 2020. They decided to add the ADU to their property so her parents can live rent free. So it's a 900 square foot home for her parents. So I'm going to encourage you all, if you haven't already, just take a look at this article from Business Insider, as it truly is a testimonial to what is happening out here. So here's some pictures, and you'll see um, Hannah, who
appears in this photo to be 42, and her family are originally from Bosnia, but they left in 1992 when Civil War had broke out. And this is, I'm just reading here and referencing this because more and more stories are out here and popping up. And even some of you are probably in what's called that sandwich generation. So that sandwich generation is, if you think of mom and dad, your cousin, your uncle, your aunt, your best friend, you are the two slices of bread. And inside those slices of bread, you have a young family. So there may be children, you have an aging family, there may be parents. And if you are married, domestic partners, you have family members, aging parents on both sides of the family, right? And so you have to think through, and then not to mention, I'm gonna add another major life decision. And that other major life decision is some people are starting to look at retirement. So now you're thinking about retiring, you still have kids at home, your parents are aging, and you have parents on both sides. So that's a sandwich. And if you think about a sandwich, sometimes the sandwich is layered with ingredients. Well, same thing for the ADU. So you have the sandwich generation that's compacting inside these ingredients where they have, or on the outside of these ingredients, where it's their family that's minors, perhaps, or early in their 20s or early in their careers. They're still living at home. You also have your aging family. You also are thinking about what does retirement look like for you. So here you'll notice that parents, they take good care of us. They do the best that they can. And so, that's very important to remember. So it looks like in this article, Brown and her husband were house hunting and they wanted to find a property that could accommodate her parents. So I remember, I've worked for new construction homes, national developers, and I worked for one national developer that was in about 15, 16 states here in the United States. And um, it was nice because one of their blueprints, their floor plans, included having a master bedroom on the side of the home, and so with a separate entrance. So those were like add-ons and things like that, or you can get, and if you didn't do an in-law suite is what we called it, then you would have it as an extra sitting room. So you had an extra sitting room on one side to the right. On the left, you had a dining area. Then you walked through and you had this great room, right? And then you had a library, you had a kitchen with extended counters, then you had a sunroom. And then, of course, there was a basement so you can have bump outs, you can have a walkout area way. And then you start to look at the upstairs, the master bedroom. You had a Jack and Jill, as some people, or side by sides, as you call them. So it just depends on what you call those rooms now. And then you had another bedroom. So I remember this floor plan, and I was like, wow, in law suites. And if you think about it, that was probably one of the number one selling floor plans in this whole development because it allowed for multicultural buyers to come in and to be able to have that space and preserve that dignity for their families. So I just thought it was incredible. And I knew that one day, I knew one day that this would be it. And that I just, for real estate, because there's so many points of entry to get involved in, but this is the one, this is a significant issue here in the United States. And by 2030, it's really going to be prevalent, and more people are going to be looking for resources and support. So when you look at back to the article, y'all, I will continue to talk about this. I'll continue to bring more stories. And then if you want to reach out to me, you can certainly reach out to me as well. I have some meetings today. I've had 5 meetings last week. It's just important that you all know about this. And you start to put a plan together. You start to talk to your family, talk to your kids, make this family business, standing on business. So, family standing on business. All right. So now they are older. The Kataks, they spend part of their time, part of their year in Bosnia. And so, as I just kind of skimmed through the article, it goes through and it talks about once they found that house, they paid about $945,000 for the house, knowing that they would create space for the Browns' parents on the property as well. So it sounds like they were able to get some land with that property. So always having a plan when you're in the real estate market, right? Good, good. So the main house could technically fit all four of them, but the Browns wanted her parents to have a space of their own. And when you're going through ADUs and when people talk to me, really preserving that dignity and that independence of their parents is very important. And I know this because my sister and I chose to do multi-generational living opposed to doing alternatives, which is doing the ADU add-ons and or having a senior community or a nursing home for my mom and my dad. We chose, that's all we knew. That's how we grew up is that, family takes care of family, takes care of family. So that's why, again, this is very personal to me. It's business, but it's personal. So, um, what the couple did, they hired an architect to bring in the space and life. So, there's a lot that goes into these ADUs. And the how you make this happen is important. And that's an area that, from an advisory services, that I come in and I try to support the families and walk them through the assessments and talk to them and really understand what the needs are short term and long term. So I don't want to spend too much time in here. I just wanted to point you to this article from the Business Insider. If you would like a link to this article, again, I can share it, or you can just go to Business Insider and you can put Woman Built ADU on her property. Parents live rent free 2026. Great article. I hope that you found some value. Again, my name is Yonda. I am the founder and CEO for Silver ADU Collective, and I'm going to continue to bring more stories like this your way. I hope that you've learned something today. And thank you all so much for your time because I really do appreciate it. And here you can connect with me on X and I would love to talk with you and hear your story because we all have stories. All right. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thank y'all so much. Bye bye. Love you.